interesting lost episode of Pasta. It's something like Coradeen Candelabra or something like that. I can barely pronounce the story either, and I had to do numerous retakes just to make sure I got it right. Anyway, this story, I mean, it's not a lost show kind of pasta like Candle Cove or Happy Appy. This does seem a little bit more feasible though, like in Candle Cove, because it was supposed to be made on like a really crappy TV station, like one of those public access TV stations that you see sometimes. And even though it has interestingly enough, reruns of shows that you may know, like Seinfeld or Friends, they made this show on its network, and it's basically about a little girl who is kind of tormented by her parents, who are complete assholes for the most part, actually mainly by the father, according to this story, and she's just kind of sad. This whole story is basically a dark, gothic, depressing, down-to-earth horror story if you add Beauty and the Beast, because apparently when her imagination starts running through, all the characters come to life, like it's a 20s or 30s cartoon or something like that, or it's, again, Beauty and the Beast. And this story gets really dark. I mean really dark. Like, it's implied, I'm not sure if it's actually said in the story or anything, or I misread something. Some people have commented on it. I think that might be a rape accusation at one point. Like, something implied that she got raped or eventually killed off, actually. And, she's mentally unstable, and her father is just abusive asshole, I guess you could say. And he just does nothing but belittles and crushes Coradeen's, just pretty much makes her miserable any way she can. She's not even allowed to have ice cream at one story, and when she does, he decides to add a topping, which turns out to be blood. You'll see that later in the story, and you hear it later in the story, and you're not gonna like it, trust me. This story is very bizarre, to say the least. I've had it on the back burner for a long time, and I think it's more than appropriate, since Halloween's coming up, to finally talk about it. I remember this show from way back in the early 2000s, called Coradeen's Candelabra. It was supposed to be a children's show, but even with my far advanced vocabulary at 6, I could still barely pronounce the title, let alone grasp the show's material. Being without cable, we use rabbit ears to get TV. By rabbit ears, I mean an antenna, not actual rabbit ears, though they would probably get better reception. One of the few channels we got was a network called Spriggan TV, which showed many sitcoms and cartoons during all hours of the day. It didn't have commercials except at the end of each show, with the credits sped up alongside the first commercial to be shown. Some of the sitcoms it had were Friends, Seinfeld, and Hogan's Heroes. Actually, until quite recently, it didn't strike me as odd that this station had the licenses and permission to use these shows and more, since it had some original stuff to show as well. One of these original shows being a cartoon called Coradeen's Candelabra. I really don't know why I didn't think about the show's oddness before now. This show was seriously messed up. I went online to search for this show after a recent conversation, which left me wondering about the show and the taste of head cheese, if it was a precursor. But there are literally no results for anything related to it. I then looked up Spriggan TV, but could only find things in German, and upon trying to look over them, I saw that these sites had nothing to do with the network but a common name. Frustrated, I went to YouTube to waste some time watching the Yogscast and other stuff. Curious, I typed Coradeen's Candelabra in the search bar, and I got nothing. No hits, no episodes, no clips, nothing. Not even YouTube had anything. I was at a standstill in my search, until my mother brought me a couple of certain VHS tapes about a week later. I asked what they were, and she answered,
"It's a show you keep looking up. I never saw you get to see it,
So I asked around work, and my friend David said he recorded the episodes a long time ago. Apparently it's a pretty hard to find show, so you should think of some time. I was astonished. I took the tapes and went into my room to watch them, eager to finally sate my curiosity. There are 14 episodes to this show, each 20 to 25 minutes long. I am only going to go over the 3 that made me the most uncomfortable. The introduction to this show, accompanied by rich, somber piano music, is a rich couple leaving their estate, a huge mansion with many expensive things on display. Their daughter, Coradeen, a red-haired, pale-faced child, almost like a ginger, she looks like a younger version of her mother, looks sad at their departure. When they have gone, she goes to a candelabra near the entrance and says Amasicia, which I'm assuming is the thing's name, as it never explicitly has any tile. The thing shudders and comes to life, along with many of the other things in the house. The rest of the intro is her dashing through the house, doing various things with the animate objects, before her parents come back. When they enter, all is back to normal. The parents' faces are grim and menacing, looking down at her as if she is scum, while she looks over to the candelabra, now back in its proper place. As the view switches to the candelabra, the title appears across the bottom of the screen, a flowing cursive script. Going only off the intro, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with the show. Sure, the glaring parents and the sad title music is pretty weird, but nothing that hasn't been done before on television. As a kid, the show's whimsy while she played was entrancing. Watching it now, it bothers the hell out of me. Episode 1, Growing Pains. This episode begins with Coradeen playing hide and seek with Amasicia in an unnamed red current. Nothing but the candelabra seems to have a name in this show. She finds Amasicia behind a stone bust of her father, who is a tall, dark-haired man with a widow's peak and a business suit, but can't find her other friend. Her mom passes by and asks her to remove some of the curtains around the house, while carrying the red one away. Sadly, Coradeen goes into a couple rooms to remove the curtains, each a different color from the last. How this works aesthetically, I don't know, but moving on. Once she's finished, Amasicia asks why their friends are gone. Coradeen answers with, "They are going to a different home, where they can be used better," in a way that says she's heard the same thing before about other things. Amasicia starts to cook up a plan to get the currents back, and has Coradeen participate. The plan is to go to the room they are being brought to, and steal them back to hang in Coradeen's room. While enacting this, however, they are caught by her father. Rather she is, because Amasicia is in her room, preparing the walls. He takes the curtains from her and shouts,
"Why do you keep doing this? They're not real. They're not your friends."
He proceeds to rip them apart, each rip punctuated by a yell word.
"You are too old to play make believe."
He tosses to shreds to her feet, and an audible whimper is heard in the curtain's voice, followed by a faint breath. Coradeen begins crying and yells, "You killed them! Why did you do that?" Her father screams,
"You are too old to play make believe."
Again, grabbing her viciously by the arm and taking her away. It cuts from her in the current room to her entering her room, a red welt now visible on her face. Amasicia is nowhere to be seen at first, but comes out of the closet as Coradeen softly cries. The candelabra sits next to her on a bed as the camera pans out. The episode ends with her saying their new, more lavish curtains, saying Amasicia over and over. The candelabra is nowhere to be found, however. Her father enters, saying in a monotone, "It's time for your medication, Coradeen." Episode 7, Maddie's Garden. This episode begins with Coradeen's mother showing a group of important-looking people around the house. She converses about her family with these people, stopping by the stairs to shout, "Cory!" the only time a nickname is ever used for her. Coradeen walks calmly down the stairs, doing a small curtsy while wearing a light blue blouse and blue dress. Her mother tells the people,
"This is Coradeen. She's 7 years old. She's very smart as well."
She then says something to her daughter in a different language, and Coradeen responds in apparently the same language. The group claps at the event's use of Latin, and is stated by one of the men in the group. The same man asks about the garden, as the group is comprised of judges for a contest. They go to the back of the house, leaving Coradeen in the main landing. She walks over to Amasicia, but the scene goes back to her mother and the judges. They are all oohing and eyeing over the plants and flowers in the garden, while her mother walks around and talks about the various plants. This scene goes on for 10 whole minutes, way longer than it had to be. The judges deliberate, but finally reveal that she wins. Second place. She looks angry for a split second, but calmly takes the silver ribbon from the judges. The show cuts to a different house at a later point in the day. A blonde woman is tending to her garden when a silhouette appears behind her. This scene lasts for 30 seconds, with the silhouette slowly getting closer before cutting to Coradeen watching TV. It was on a newscast about the missing first place garden owner, Maddie Pendleton, saying she had gone missing the same day she had won the ribbon. The committee that judged the contest appeared on the coverage, saying that the contest would be held in her memory in the future. This episode ends with Coradeen's mother tending to a freshly dug garden, each section marked off with a stick of wood decorated with pieces of the curtains from episode 1. She fertilizes the garden with pinkish red pellets from a bag, which I guess implies that Maddie is growing one last garden. This episode seems to be the least prepared, with a few lines of dialogue cut off at the end. It's also one of the two that doesn't involve Coradeen in the plot. Episode 12. We all scream for ice cream. I hated this episode. I hated this episode. So much. Coradeen and Amasicia are playing with a cooking set, making macaroni and cheese, which resemble barf, but she's 7, give her a break. Amasicia tastes it, and tells her that it's the best thing since ice cream. Coradeen doesn't know what ice cream is, being homeschooled and limited on TV time, as seen in episode 5. Amasicia tells her to go get some from the kitchen, where it's kept up in the freezer. She goes to get it, but is stopped when her parents walk in, asking her to go away for a bit. She leaves as her parents argue about their marriage. Her father wants to have sex, which is startling enough in a children's show, but her mother doesn't want to. Frustrated, he exits the kitchen, slamming the door and going outside. The next 8 minutes are comprised of both Coradeen trying to bake new foods to emulate ice cream, and her trying to sneak into the kitchen to get some. Near the end of the episode, she tries again in the dead of night, finally getting the carton of vanilla from the freezer. As she opens it, her father walks in and sees her with the ice cream. He looks extremely angry for a moment, before his face switches to a calmer expression. He says,
Maybe you can help me with my problem. Your mother doesn't seem to want to help.
He motions for her to follow, and they exit the room, Coradeen still carrying the ice cream.
If you help me, I'll let you in on a little secret.
The camera stays in the kitchen, but you can hear Coradeen screaming in pain from the other room. It doesn't even sound like a voice actor at this point. It sounds like a real person in agony. After 2 minutes of her screaming, they come back. Coradeen with tears streaming down her face, and her father with a satisfied look on his face. He sits her down at the table with her ice cream, now covered in a wet liquid, and tells her,
Ice cream's always better with a cherry on top.
The rest of the episode is her eating the barbaric dessert. I vomited after this episode. I almost didn't watch the last 2, but I made myself. Coradeen dies in the last 2 episodes, so I don't understand why they allow this on a children's show. This show is nothing but a portrayal of an abused daughter, bringing a new meaning to the term, being like a redhead stepchild. I'm glad that this show is as obscure as it is, so no one will accidentally stumble upon it. The tapes are currently under investigation by police because of the way the explicit material was portrayed, as well as my mother's friend David, since they could find no evidence that Spriggan TV ever existed, and are assuming that he made the show until further notice. None of the people featured in the show's credits are real people, and there isn't a known animator who does animation similar to the show's. David had a daughter who had died in 2003 at age 8, and was known to draw his own holiday cards for people, using a style that was similar to the show's. The father in the show is strikingly familiar to his own father,